All right, I hereby call to order the City of Nisswa regular city council meeting on this Tuesday, January 21st, 2025 at 7 PM. If we could all rise for the pledge. Thank you. The first order of business is to approve the amended agenda. The amendments include, first is the LG 220 application for the fire department as item number 18 under the consent calendar. The second amendment is a J.C.'s request for the closure of Woodward Avenue access for the ice fishing contest. That is item number 3 under open forum. The third is the council received 2 emails from the public related to the police chief succession plan. Both emails are included in the packet. This is listed as item number 1 under new business. And lastly, additional information has been added to the packet as it relates to the resolution for the direct purchase with ETOC, which is item number 4 under new business.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the amended agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved. The next item is the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar on the agenda are considered routine business by the council and will all be enacted by one motion. If there is no discussion or commentary, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Okay, next on our agenda is the open forum. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to address the council this evening? If so, you can please come to the microphone and state your name and, is it address, Jenny? Yeah. Name and address.
My name's Mike French. Address is 22038 Crimson Lane, Brainerd, Minnesota. I came to this meeting particular because I was here last month because I was concerned about my taxes. But what it came up, I saw on the board, and it got my attention, the revenue generation by the city of Nisswa, in particular, the liquor businesses that the city operates. And I saw the gross revenues that were received by both the bottle shop and the pickle. And I was thinking about that ever since then. I was kind of concerned. I'm going, what is going on that these businesses so underperform any average business? National business, national bottle shop business, national bar business. How come they so underperform in revenue generation? And I thought, well, I wonder, does anybody ever pay attention to this? You know, it's what I saw, you know, cost versus, all I saw was cost versus what was sold, which really doesn't address where the profit went. And I wondered if anybody had paid attention to that on the council, had really looked into it. Because as a business owner, when we ran our coffee business and we, like the bottle shop, we sold bags of beans. We always kept in our point of sale system how many were sold, how it was sold, whether it was cash or whether it was credit card, which types of beans. We had this all laid out so that we could look back and keep track of what was actually going on in that business day to day, if not hour to hour, but day to day, week to week, month to month. And so we knew where our profits were, how much revenue was actually coming in and how much was going out at the same time. But what we did was able to really identify sales. Because you know, if you have 100 pounds of beans coming in, you should have 100 pounds of beans going out. And I was wondering, what's wrong with those figures? Because the profits, what I looked at, and looking back 10 or 12 years, you're talking, these things should go at least 20 to 30% net profit. That's after you pay everybody. And I didn't see that in those figures, and I didn't see it going back. I started adding that up, and you're talking millions of dollars of revenue that is not showing up. So it made me ask another question, why Nisswa was even in the business. I think munis were actually done to help provide revenue for these small towns. That's why they allowed munis to operate liquor businesses. So I just wanted to bring that up for you guys to look at, see, try to figure out what the heck is going on and why these aren't generating more money for the city of Nisswa. I think it's going to take a deep dive, but I think you need to look. Anyway, that was a concern to me. That's all I have.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mike. So we have, the liquor committee, which we had our first meeting, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. And we did, in that meeting, we went through the financials, which I think I had a chance to share some of these with you. But top level, just talking about, so this is just talking about the pickle, not spirits. And again, this isn't the final number for year end because I don't think the books have fully closed yet, but at the pickle, the top line revenues were approximately 1.5 million. Again, this is not final. And then what flowed through to the bottom line is 109,000. So you're correct in that it's under 10%.
That is
But one
way
of the,
under,
yeah, so one of the things we're doing within this committee, and we discussed this, is one, we're having the committee meet, or the goal is for the committee to meet in this chamber. So every meeting is open to the public for people to come participate, listen, give feedback, and for the city to be fully transparent with the numbers. The second thing is we're looking to sit down with the managers of both the pickle and spirits to look at what is the 2025 business plan and look at it like a business owner, right? And discuss, hey, you know, what are we going to project out for our revenues this year? Where do we think we might be able to drive incremental growth? Are there ways that we might be able to be more efficient with the operating expenses and find areas to cut costs, right? So we're going to go through that process with both spirits and the pickle and try to set targets like you would when you own your own business, right? Of how you're going to grow that 3, 5, 7% each year and really try to take a different approach to that. Now, I know neither Terry or Brian are here tonight, the managers of both those organizations. So I don't want to like step on their toes, right? But
Oh.
we want to approach it in a different way this year. And so we appreciate you for bringing this up because there is always opportunity to improve. And, you know, if this is a way where we can bring growth, cut expenses, and then flow that over to the city, which in effect then will cut people's levies, right? Or save the city money in other areas. That's the goal of it. And I would let Councilmember Zahn chime in too, because he's on the liquor committee. He was on it last year as well. So he has a lot more background information than I do at this point in time.
I just
Right.
want to understand the full context of your question, because there's a couple in there. So is the first question in regards to the actual underlying profitability of either of the two entities?
No, yeah, I think they're both could be highly profitable. I'm wondering why they aren't, for one. And who's in charge of making sure they are? You know, I mean, it's a city business, it's millions of dollars. We ought to be looking really close at where that's going. And it's nothing against the people that operate it, because I don't know who they are. But what I saw in those figures really shocked me, because I would expect 30% from that bottle shop, at least, and maybe even more from the retail side of it. So,
30% net.
oh yeah, yeah. That's why all the restaurants sell liquor. The food doesn't make the business, it's the liquor that does.
Interesting. I own a couple businesses as well, and I would dream to have 30% net. Hell, I dream for 15% net, but to be able to pull that amount, I would
Well,
like to know if we've even come close to figures like that historically speaking. I'm not sure. But even looking at figures after our last liquor committee meeting, we had record number this year in regards to either both spirits and pickle, I believe. The boom in the sales in the last 5-year average has really derived from the COVID. However, any of us want to classify people wanting to consume more alcohol during that time frame. But when I first became a part of the council and was on the liquor committee as liaison, I think there was a total dollar profit on an annual basis in 22. Don't hold me to it, but it was $18,000, up
That-
about,
that's really scary.
very scary.
It's,
But you also look at it on the bottle shop side, I think revenues this year are, you got the numbers up, so I'm gonna have to.
4.5 million
Mhm.
on the
Boy.
top line in the bottles in spirits, and then the flow through to the bottom line is just under 400,000, so 398, so
It's-
closer to 10%.
and spirits is certainly not a discount liquor store. The, if you bought anything there. Anyway, what I'm getting at is I ran a business for 20-some years that had a lot higher cost basis and had much more revenue generation than these. What I'm saying is something's gone wrong with the efficiency or something in there that needs to have somebody take a good, hard look at.
Yeah, and I was on the liquor committee the last couple of years, and what you're saying has not gone unnoticed. It's just, what's unique is there's not an owner, meaning that there's a council that has turned over and the people have turned over, and that was one of my realizations with this too, is who's making the ownership decisions? And that is something that needs to be addressed. And I know we've had conversations on that because that hasn't happened. And I believe, you know, what you're seeing is a result of that because it's a business being ran without the owner
You know,
making decisions.
without supervision, you're gonna find that it doesn't matter what business it is, pretty soon it's, the employees are gonna be the beneficiaries and not the owner. And you have to keep checks and balances and a very close eye on things. And this is not pointing fingers at anybody, I don't mean that, but because sometimes they get extraordinarily generous with a product that's not theirs. And that's what we found would happen. And I think it just needs some supervision, close supervision. So that the Nisswa and the citizens in Nisswa can get the benefit of the revenue. So their taxes don't go up 73%.
Yeah, and that's what I like about this new current group. I think some more business sense will be applied versus past councils.
I just want to bring it up so people be aware, take a look.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Is there anyone else that would like to come up during this public comment period? Okay, I don't see anyone. All right, the next item under open forum is the fire department annual presentation. So we'd like to call on Chief Sean Bailey from the Nisswa Fire Department. Sean, the floor is yours.
Welcome. How's you guys this evening? Yeah. So here's our fire department today. That's not all the members. Right now we have 26 members and 1 first responder in our group. It's not working. So this year we did 347 first responder calls, 14 alarms, 11 hazardous conditions, 22 fires, 18 car wrecks, 2 other calls, good intent calls, we had 25, so a total of 439 is what we did this year. We're about 33 off of last year. So that's good. That's good. People are starting to dial back on their medical calls and saying, you know, trying to reevaluate what's an emergency and what is not emergency. So things are getting a little bit better for us. As you see on this screen, in July is obviously our biggest month. You know, May surprised us and shot out through the roof, but July is obviously our biggest month. And as you see, we just spool down. Now, December, we ramp back up for some reason. I'm not sure. Around the holidays, it gets a little busier. It doesn't work at all. Next. Sorry. So calls serviced by incidents and districts. Lake Edwards got 19% of those calls. Lake Shore got 20. Nisswa got 57. And then Pequot and Sibley got the other ones, just the little pieces. Different call types. As you can see, medicals run us there. If anybody wants a copy of this presentation, we can pass it out to you. It just shows our different fire calls here. So fire calls, 6.3% of all calls for services fire related. Not very many, right? But we have to be prepared. That's why we train. Next. EMS, accidents and rescues. You know, this is where we're pretty much running these days. A lot of, you know, EMS and accidents, especially with 371 out front, rescue calls. But like I say, the medicals is what picks up most of it. Car wrecks, I believe if you can turn it to white, you'll see car wrecks are around about 12%. Next. So good intent calls, here they are. Public assist is like 2%. And power lines down. We didn't have a lot of storms this year, which was good. Only it turned into like 3 calls. Carbon monoxide, they seem to be the biggest thing that's hitting us big now, like 8 calls over the years. And then as you see, dispatch canceled en route, we had 22 this year. And here's some highlights from our trainings. We do our EMR, EMT training, hazardous environments, bus extrication. That was a big one for us this year, vehicle extrication. And then we do a ton of pumping and driving in our trainings. Community events, these are what we do, Safety Town, fire awareness at the school, the ice fishing derby, which is coming up here on the 16th. Brainerd Outreach, we've really started enjoying going over to Outreach and packing. We invite other fire departments to join us through these things. That's been a real opening our hearts from our families to the outreach program. It's been great. Do a pancake breakfast, an open house, and a haunted barn. Here's our layout. Myself, the chief, then we have Joe as the assistant, and then we have 4 captains, and then we have squads underneath it, which like I said, comes out to 26 people. And then you can't see this one. On my screen, you could. It was white. Basically, if you look at the top 3, it goes 28. The top 3, there's 3 of us that have just under 30 years of service on the department. And then the next one is Joe at 20. And then we have a pretty young department. And then the top 10. The top 10, I lead the way at 225 calls. Lizzie Thurlow's at 191. Richard Geiki's at 187. Joe Hall's at 128. Doug Beals at 120. Mike Hemrick's at 106. And Justin's at 99. Matt Hall's 99. Caitlin 84, and then Andy Schaefer at 77. So we do have quite a bit of dedication from our guys in these calls. So it's a lot of time. As you saw, go ahead, next one. I think it's on training. So this year we have bought a new command vehicle that Joe will be receiving to get rid of our old Tahoe that we got from the police department umpteen years ago that they ran for umpteen years. And we're working with a new training organization. And we're just continuing on recruitment efforts, trying to keep people coming to our fire department. You guys have any questions?
Bravo. Thank you.
Yes, we're trying. Anything else? Nothing?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, last under open forum is the J.C.'s request. So this is the closure of the Woodward Avenue access for the ice fishing contest. Do we have a motion from the council?
Before Mayor Carnahan, if we could, We have someone
Oh.
here, which is great, and just.
Sorry about that.
No. So I think just maybe some context or some ideas would be really helpful. In years past, the council has wanted to maybe hear about some
Oh, sure.
plans or ideas, just so that you're all on the same page in case there's questions from either Chief Bailey or Chief Taylor. Just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Shane Meyer here on behalf of the Brainerd JCs. We're looking at shutting that particular road down, 1201 on February 1st. Twofold reasons as to why. Number one, to stop traffic on the ice, so that we can better control the weight distribution of the contestants. We don't want the lake to become a parking lot. That's always been like the opposite of we want. We spend an awful lot of money on busing and parking and things to make sure that we don't have a ton of people parking on the ice. Now this year we have an ice heave that's corner to corner on where the contest site would normally be. We're adjusting that. So we do want to let people up until midnight pull ice castles and things through that area, but then shut it off for day of traffic. Second reason to shut it down would be unwanted traffic for Grandview Lodge and their patrons. We don't want people parking where they don't belong, people trashing places that they don't belong and aren't paying to be. So to protect them and their patrons, and then to protect safety on the ice is the two main reasons why we have any want to shut that road down.
Is the tournament site due to that ice heave? Is it shifting more south?
Yep. So
South
if
around
you can
Holman Point?
visualize what the tournament
Yeah.
normally is, basically that ice heave runs corner to corner from Polk's Flats to Holman's Point.
Yeah.
We took the contest site and shifted it clockwise, if you will, and southeast. So we're running our northwest boundary will be the ice heave itself. It'll be about 100 feet off of the contest site, and then we're just moved south of that as big as we could make it without running into shore, and still leaving some ice castle row space on the Holman's Point side and on the southern side of Hole in the Day Bay.
Okay.
It's plowed now. If you,
I saw him Sunday night.
yeah, we were out there Sunday, a good
I
portion of
live
the
right
day.
there.
Okay.
I saw it. I'm like, hopefully they see the ice heave, the other ice heave that's over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a second one. And after that snowfall, there's still dark blue indicating water is coming through. So hopefully these cold temps are.
Yeah, it seems to be
Zero.
less active, but it's not active. So we were really trying to just control the flow of people to try to keep them off of it. I watched a guy jump it with the truck on Sunday and thought we were calling Nisswa Fire to come and pull him out, but he made it. So and we drilled where the snowmobile goes across, or the snowmobile trail put out by the bars, as I understand it, goes across the heave, and it's actually okay there. I wouldn't send a truck across it, but foot traffic, if we can vet a couple of places really well for foot traffic, that would be the goal, is to get people to come up within 100 feet and then walk across.
Okay.
We can only control what we can control, but we have a pretty good security department, and with the sheriff's department and EMS in the area is out there helping us. I don't think we're gonna have an issue securing that and keeping people away from it, off of it, to keep them safe.
Thank you.
No problem.
Does anyone else have any questions? Right, do we have a motion? Oh,
Here.
go ahead.
I would say that, I mean, we could certainly snow fence it ourselves. If you guys, I think just road closed signs, barricades would be sufficient. You're only gonna keep the honest. So if somebody wants to send it through there, they're gonna do it. And the sheriff's department will be around to hopefully stifle that a little bit, but at the end of the day, we can only control the people that are willing to listen So I think if you guys had some barricades you could put up, we could sure come out and help, at any juncture. Right, right. And I mean, for EMS efforts on the north side of that heave, we probably want them to be relatively accessible because if in fact we ever did have a major issue, we're gonna have to be able to get at it from both sides. Hopefully without ever having to cross the heave in a vehicle, but. Excellent, appreciate it.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the Brandon J.C.'s request regarding the closure of the Woodward Avenue access for the ice fishing contest.
I'll second it.
Is there any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
And be safe.
Okay, next on the agenda, we are at the section of reports. So Jenny, I will turn it to you to start with the city administrator report.
Thank you, Mayor Carnahan. Good evening, members of the council. My report is in your packet. Happy to answer questions. Just a couple of items to highlight. Financial updates. What I neglected to include in here is just that our annual audit is coming up mid-February. So Maggie and I will be working on preparation for that. So be sure to thank her for her work on those efforts. More to come in the next few months on that. As you may have noticed, I did include a section on the upcoming city council retreat. So the mayor and I are working on that agenda, still in process and to be determined on all of the exact topics, but I did include some of the ones that we have been discussing. Downtown master plan will likely be added to that. If you have anything additional you would like us to consider, please let me know. These topics are pretty big and important, so we'll have definitely a full day on that. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that I did provide the 2025 league's legislative priorities, just for your information. There's a lot of good topics and things that they'll be keeping an eye on this year, and I'm happy to help provide some more background information if and when the council needs it, or if you have any individual interests, just feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Jenny, I have one in regards to the financial update for the 24 insurance dividend.
Yes.
Is that $13,194 a dividend being paid to the city of Nisswa back to the city of Nisswa?
Correct. So we just record it as miscellaneous revenue. We do get a dividend check every year. It's not typically this much because they don't normally do a dividend for the work comp program, but they
budgeted too many hours.
yeah. They
I
actually,
under budgeted for my business. It stinks. So
yes,
will that just be allocated to the unreserved fund?
correct.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. Then I had a comment about this Verizon cell tower that I already talked to you two about via email, so. Just again, going back to the discussion last, maybe it was December meeting regarding the new land that we have alongside 371 for a potential higher tower there versus having a larger tower in the downtown presence to try to make it more effective, but cosmetically speaking, appealing.
All right, any other questions for Jenny? Okay, do we have a report from our city attorney?
Good evening, everybody. No, I don't have anything to report here.
City engineer?
Good evening, everybody. I just like to tell you some of the stuff I've been working on. Been working with Jenny and Tom about the lift station 1 and 12 location, getting that information for the retreat. Also working on the 2025 streets and working with Tom on some of the right-of-way issues and how to deal with those. Also finished up the Gull Lake Trail Phase 4B plan specs and the estimate, and part of that's going to be talked about later today. And doing a little bit on Nisswa Park, whatever Amber gives me, but that's pretty much what I got. Thanks.
Any questions from anyone? All right, thank you. Okay, next we are to new business. The first item under new business is a presentation from our police chief regarding the police chief succession plan. The goal for tonight's discussion is to ensure that we as a council are aligned on the foundational elements of this process. Before we move toward the hiring phase, it's essential that we focus on key areas such as the department's mission, vision, values, and goals, as well as alignment on the job description. I think this will allow us to proceed thoughtfully and collaboratively as we shape the future of the department. So tonight, we will provide an opportunity for input from Chief Taylor and members of the public. And then we'll gather initial input from each council member to ensure clarity and consensus on the process. And as I mentioned, our aim is to leave this meeting with a shared understanding of these foundational elements. Then our goal would be at a future meeting to finalize alignment on these areas to determine the exact hiring process. I will also add that the Personnel Committee, which is made up of myself, Councilmember Hall, and our City Administrator, Jenny Max, we met this morning and a memo was put together to outline these next steps for the hiring of a police chief. So that should have been passed out here to everyone tonight. So if you haven't had a chance to review the memo, hopefully you can. And with that, we'd like to turn it over to our esteemed Police Chief, Craig Taylor.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll be short, I promise. So Councilman Zahn asked me to come in and to do this presentation, and I appreciate the invite. I have put together 3 appropriate options I think that the city needs to consider as far as how they want to proceed with the new police chief. You can do a combination of any of these, and just me being here, I want you to know that I recognize this is your decision to make and yours alone. So I'm just making a recommendation for what I think is the best, and then you will be responsible for implementing your decision, your vision. So the first option is that you could open this job up and do some sort of a regional or statewide search to try to encourage a bunch of, applications to see what kind of people you can get, if there's anybody that would be suitable. If you were to take that option, I'm going to guess that you would likely want to hire some sort of a consultant, as was done when the city administrator was hired, that they would assist with the process of doing the search, maybe doing some original or initial interviews. And then I'm guessing probably at some point then the council would have an opportunity to do their interviews with probably a narrowed down set of candidates. But if you do this, you're probably going to have some expenses with hiring someone to advise you. There will be staff time invested in, putting materials together, preparing for interviews, sending out letters, or that could be added with a consultant. If that's how you would do, they'd maybe take care of that. There would be some expense you'd be required to do a background check. And it has to be a pretty thorough background check, and I think you'd want it to be pretty thorough. You'd probably want another police department likely to do that. They won't do it for free. And you would probably want it to be very detailed and very thorough. You would also have to pay for a medical evaluation. This is required by law. A psychological evaluation. And then you would have to engage in salary negotiations, and you might go through all of this and never come to an agreement and have to either start over or go to your second candidate. That's option number 1. And it is done that way at times. It's different places do it different ways. Bigger cities often do it that way. The second option is to post the position internally and let the current officers apply. And that way you can get the whole department a chance for advancement. However, you will likely, if you haven't already are going to implement minimum standards. I have proposed minimum standards that you should consider or that you can, you don't have to, that you can consider for the hiring. And that includes years of experience in law enforcement and in supervisory positions. I would say it's appropriate to require some supervisory experience for this job. You do have officers that are gonna need to be managed. There's 5 officers and an office manager that will report to the police chief. The last option is you could promote somebody from internally without any interview, without any, other process that you'd have to follow. That would require no background check, no medical evaluation, or no psychological evaluation. There has been some concerns from a couple of citizens on the regular way of doing things. And I am going to, this comes from my memory, so it's very accurate, since 1996. Since that time, there have been 20 police chiefs in Crow Wing County promoted. Of the 20 that were promoted, 15 were promoted from internal in their own department. 5 were hired from outside. None of the 5 are police officers still in the area. They have moved on retirements, because likely you're going to get somebody that's older that is going to be eligible for retirement soon, or they moved on to other departments. So my recommendation is this, that you promote Sergeant Szymanski to the position of chief. I believe that Todd has demonstrated the skills, the character that any police department would be proud to have working for them. Todd has been loyal to the city. He has not applied for any other jobs. He sacrifices of himself to make sure that shifts are covered and that the operation runs smoothly. He does a good job of it, and sometimes I don't even have to worry about what has happened because Todd has taken care of it. So I believe that he should be given a chance to do it. And he will have a probationary period like any other candidate would, and you will have 6 months with me or so I can help him through the annual things that come up that are easy to forget about, but post-board audits and post-board certifications of, making sure officers have the required training. These are things that will come up that, it's easy to forget to do them. They'll remind you, but he'll have a chance to work through all of that one time before he's on his own. I think Todd probably has the best knowledge of the community. He is a local person. He did go to Pequot High School. And don't hold that against him. But, again, I know it's your decision. And I'm sure it's a serious and tough one to make. But I think that for the best, smoothest plan forward, I would recommend, without any hesitation, Sergeant Szymanski. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Chief Taylor? I guess Councilmember Hall, we can start with you if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, Councilmember Zahn.
You answered any question I would have had in that great presentation. I appreciate that.
Councilmember London.
I have no questions for Chief Taylor. I agree with what he's saying.
Councilmember Fraley.
I have no questions. I think people know where I stand on this.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come in.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank you.
taking the time. And then I guess we would like to open up if there's anyone from the public that would like to make any comments or ask any questions related to this process. You can approach the microphone. Okay, quiet group tonight. Well then, with that, what I'd like to do is go back to the council for discussion. If there's any additional discussion around the presentation or the process or this item before us, and I guess we'll start again to my left with Councilmember Hall.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, as we had met earlier as the personnel committee, we had just identified a few things that we wanted to do as we move ahead with new chief position also too as a council. Just making sure the job description is in line, also looking at the emergency management role, potentially switching that from the chief of police over to the fire chief. taking that off, of the police chief role. Both Sean and Craig are here if either one of them wanted to talk about that. Just the emergency management stuff, switching it. So that maybe they both have a comment, but there's just some, I guess, some housekeeping things like that to talk about, to go over.
Typically, the fire chief is the emergency management director.
Mhm.
Fire departments are trained better at events that are disastrous in nature. We're better at things that are investigatory in nature. And I mean, it's just great for the fire department. They love this stuff. And they have the equipment that, that we don't have to, utilize in some of these events. So my opinion is the fire chief should be the emergency management director.
So I guess,
I feel
before-
like I just got hung.
Just say yes,
Right.
just say
No.
yes.
but before Sean goes, kind of with that, those are discussions that we need to have because those are some keeping things that were brought up today that I addressed that we need to talk about ahead of time. One thing though, however, before Sean speaks, as the emergency management, let's go back to 2015, 16, like during the storms, that would be an event that we are very much a part of. However, with that, when you have a bigger event, something the council needs to talk about too, as this, it is a volunteer role. And we are getting paid $20 a call when we have had these bigger events in town. When it triggers that title within fire chief, we need to look at a different compensation for those time periods. I mean, back to those storms, we were out for a couple weeks doing stuff in related to that, and not that it's all about the money, but it does have a financial impact on big events, and the city will need to address that, and the council needs to talk about that, because it's going to look different than it currently have versus having the full-time police chief do it. So that's one of the impacts with it. And so I don't know if Sean has anything else to say with that, but that's something that we need to discuss. We may want to put this item on the agenda again for February to talk about how this is done. But with that being said, back to what, just kind of addressing this, the other thing that I brought up is, there's a mission statement on the wall back there, what's our new current mission statement? I think, it's always good to look at that, update it, improve on it, from a lot of the residents and business community that we've had out here, what are our goals for a new chief coming in the department? What does that look like? I know on our list down here for myself personally is the cannabis thing, one of my goals as a business owner, resident of this town for the new police chief and police department is I don't want to take my kids and walk down Main Street and have it smell like the Strip in Las Vegas. So,
Nothing we can do about that.
right,
though.
well, that would be a priority that we want to make it known that we're serious. You're not going to do this stuff in public areas in this town. And I think for us to spend a little bit of time coming up with a vision of what the new chief and the new role is, maybe just an example would be good to do, to publicly say, here's our vision, here's our goal for this department and the chief. So I guess.
Very good. Council members on, do you have any additional input, thoughts, feedback?
Maybe 28, 27 years ago, Chief Taylor, I think I met you for the first time. I was a 5-year-old young man. You were dropping off what was to be a classmate of mine, your son. And we ended up going through grade school all the way together through Brainerd High School. Being in this community my whole life, most of your life, I would imagine as well. You've always been a figure here. You've been a staple. You've done a great job. People respect you and your words carry weight. And with the recommendation of Sergeant Smansky, I hear that and I appreciate the testament you made for him. And I can echo that too from my interactions with Todd. And I think he'll further your legacy and make his own mark in his department, carrying to Joe's points as well too. So thank you. And I have no other comment.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember London.
I've known Chief Taylor for a long time, knew him when he was a young kid. And I've gotten to know Todd, and I think he'll do a great job as the next police chief.
Very good. Councilmember Fraley.
Well, they always say small town cops make great metropolitan cops. Metropolitan cops make terrible small town cops. Small municipalities, from understanding with family background, is small municipalities need continuity. The officers that we have know the area, they know the people. I just go by the recommendations, what we had with the personnel committee, go through that the process. Should be fine.
Okay, very good. Well, I feel very fortunate to be a part of such a special community, and Chief Taylor, your reputation precedes itself. You've done an amazing job, and we thank you and appreciate everything you've done and look forward to next steps on this and continuing to have a very positive and vibrant Nisswa. We can still come to and we can come and see you play too, right? So. All right, Jenny, we don't need any formal motion at this point, or,
It sounds like there's agreement about the proposed process, so we will just move forward with that.
okay, very good. Good. All right, the next item under new business, item number 2 is to approve a cannabinoid license for Schaefer's. Jenny, is there any commentary, or I see Andy's here?
No, we have our first 2 in the city here, and very standard set of forms, similar to a liquor license process, but everything looks to be in order.
Okay, any questions or commentary from the council? Otherwise, if we have a motion to approve the license for Schaefer's.
I'll make a motion to approve the cannabis license for Schaefer's as presented.
Second.
I have one item. Jenny, was there no application by the brewery next to Andy? Roundhouse,
No, I have not seen anything yet.
None.
Big X.
because they were here for,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay, all right. That's all I had.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the cannabinoid license for Schaefer's signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Next on the agenda is also approving a cannabinoid license, this one for Big Axe.
I'll make a motion to approve the cannabinoid license for Big X as presented.
Second.
All right, any additional discussion for this particular license? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 4, the resolution for direct purchase, ETOC. Jenny, is there anything here that,
Yes, I'll just
Okay.
give a quick update since these materials were revised for the council, and I wanted to make sure to identify the revisions that took place. One of them was to modify the date of the expiration for the temporary easements to June 30th, 2026. I think originally we had December 31st, 2025, but June 30th is the date of the grant expiration, so we just want as much time as we might need to ensure that we've got the work done. So we did modify the date, and then we did update Exhibit C, which is that list of items that the city negotiated with ETOC. Wanted to provide some more detail within that exhibit, just clarity so that everyone kind of knows who's doing what and what this direct purchase is going towards. There is one potential technical item that we're still working out, and that is ETOC has many properties. They don't always have the same legal name across each one. So I did ask that question of the city attorney to double check that, and so he's going to do that. So if there is, say, something from ETOC Company Inc. to ETOC Inc. or something like that, we do want to be able to make those revisions as needed per Tom's direction. But he's still confirming that so that we can present the right documents to the county. So with that, the total purchase price for the easements required for this Gully Trail project is $63,370. This cost will be taken from general fund unreserved funds. And with that, I will answer any questions.
right, does anyone have any questions for Jenny? No? All right, do we have a motion?
I so move.
And second?
I'll second.
I am not gonna vote on this.
Okay, any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, next under new business is the recommendation from the liquor committee related to selling THC products, and this is just specifically within the city properties, so the pickle and spirits.
Correct, yes.
Are there any questions or comments?
No, they-
Madam, sorry, go ahead.
No, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna make a motion.
You might say the same thing I am, so go.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation from the liquor committee regarding selling THC products.
I'll
to
second.
Not sell them.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
They still are gonna put in, correct, for the possibility of future, if I understood that correctly.
We do have the paperwork with the state, so we do
Okay.
have the ability,
Right.
but wanted to ask the question of the
Yes.
council here.
Yeah.
But yes,
And-
that can be changed in the future.
Okay, any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Next is the recommendation from the liquor committee, RE, the pickle improvements. And Jenny, would you mind just speaking to this one?
Yep, certainly. So the liquor committee did meet a couple of weeks ago, and we reviewed the financial analysis that was provided by PFM, our financial advisors. And upon review of that and discussion with PFM that Terry and I had following the initial review of the information, it became clear that a new build for the pickle is likely not realistic at this time, just due to their financial situation. I would say that the business is running well. There are certainly improvements and opportunities that can be captured. But based on the current transfer that the pickle does make to the city general fund budget, and some of the capital funds that have been put away, there's not additional money available for a significant bond payment if we were to construct a new building. So the committee discussed modifying that approach and looking at what opportunities we might have to remodel the building and identify the priorities for that, and then trying to work through that at a smaller scale project, potentially using some reserve funds that the liquor fund does have currently, and then potentially working with a local bank to, create a small loan in that way to, bring in some local business and also keep that, debt payment low. So with this, then we talked about the city hall remodel project, and that we're currently using the Gordian process to help streamline that opportunity to really engage the local contractors to start to develop that priority list of needs for the building. And that's where the liquor committee landed tonight, is to bring a recommendation to the council that we would engage Widseth to identify a scope of work and professional design services proposal, similar to what Mike Anglin brought to the council for the city hall remodel project, utilizing that Gordian process, so we can work directly with some local contractors to identify those improvements needed at the pickle. So what this would do essentially is Widseth would develop a proposal, bring back to the council in February for your consideration before any work or anything is needed, so you can see what scope would be needed to kind of initiate that project. Is that a fair summary?
That's a
Yep.
great summary.
Any questions for
Well, I
Jenny?
just think in the past, didn't Tom look at some of the things that might have to be done? And I think that's gonna be the cost, no matter what we do, is gonna be 7 figures. That's just my opinion.
Correct. I mean, we've already talked about this years past, and
Right.
Tom has already put together a preliminary estimate that outweighs the viability of remodeling that 50-year-old building. So why are we taking a run at this again? This is just a waste of money, in my opinion. I guess I was on the liquor committee for 2 years. We've talked about this extensively, and there is no, I guess back to Mike French, if the business isn't going to make money, why are we holding on to it? We could rent that property out and we could have less risk, liability, and make more of a profit on our bottom line by just renting it out today than looking at hiring WSN to go in there and do the scope. Tom has already done this for free for us, and we already know the project, like Mark said, we already know that it's way over 7 figures just to bring it up the code, so what are we doing? You know, the question is not if we should or shouldn't remodel that building, it's are we going to turn it into a viable business that's gonna make the city money? Or are we gonna get rid of the risk, liability and overhead? Are we going to lease it out? Or are we going to knock it down? Form a new business plan that does make viable revenue for the city, but remodeling it isn't even one of the current options. I mean, you know, Tom's sitting right here. I mean, he can speak to the dollar amount that he saw, you know, I agree with what Mark just said. We've already determined that years ago. A year ago, we had a proposal for $50,000 to figure this out. We voted that down over a year ago. So to come up with this again, I just question, what are we doing? I am in no way in favor of this. We are just throwing money away. We already know how expensive it's gonna be. We already know some of the issues. I mean, if people wanna know, we can ask Tom. He's sitting right here. I guess that's,
One, I think we need the pickle because it's a thing.
we need it to make money though.
Right, and I agree, and that's something that, I mean, when I came on, we started looking at the need for, like you said, run as a business, we're the owners. I just want to know what what was the committee looking at when this came up?
Looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
We're looking at the dollars that it's bringing in. Love the aspect of thinking that something's gonna fetch 20, 30 net. Let's be realistic here. This is the real world. I don't know on what business that gentleman Mr. French was referring to, but
He founded Stonehouse
most,
Coffee.
sure thing, but I'm
most-
talking, when I got onto that liquor committee, that net was 1.5%. And I think it was like 1.2% at the net profit it was at versus the overall revenue, gross revenue. Looking at the dollar amount that it's gonna potentially take to build a new one, even factoring in a revenue bond, the appetite, I would say, since you and I were last on the liquor
Right.
committee, was looking at where we're at for year end and its pre-audited financials to understand there is a need for a minimum XYZ list of upgrades to that building if that route was to be explored. If you were to build a new pickle factory, the numbers don't exactly justify being able to go down that route. It also warrants your other point of why are we in this business if we're not making money? That totally understand that from me being a business owner. I get that. You get that.
Right.
It has this cultural piece to the city of Nisswa where the pickle factory is just that. It's a pickle factory. Folks coming in to this town that are either full-time residents, part-timers, or they're just going through 371. We all kind of agreed they like the ambiance of the grease stink in there. Feel bad for the folks that are working in there. We owe it to them to improve it. But what's the greatest dollar impact that we can help the folks that we're employing through the city that are running that business? The bottom line has been improving year over year, at least for the past 3 years since I've been on this council, seeing the data closely. I think it can continue to trend in a better direction. I would like to see a full-blown scope of work that at a minimum basis is required to get that building, one, up to code, and two, that I think will help give us the better clarity of, okay, we've pulled the Band-Aid off. How badly infected is this wound? Now we need to make the decision, are we gonna amputate or are we gonna try to surgically repair this? So on a high level, I would say, hopefully that. covers that.
And the decision in the liquor committee was made based on only two paths, right? Build a new building or remodel the existing building. So when we were faced with those two paths based on the financials, building a new building is not,
It's not enough.
it's not an option at all. But the larger problem is, and Councilmember Hall mentioned this and it's on, is this business isn't, and Mike French said it, it's not making any money. I mean, to sell 1.5 million to only flow through 109,000 to the bottom line. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been at the pickle and people are saying, oh yeah, I come here and buy drinks because I'm lowering my property taxes. And I'm looking at them like, not really. Like, you're really not, to be honest.
Now,
So we need, this business either needs to, like I said, I'm meeting with Terry tomorrow. We were gonna sit down and go through 2025 and start building an actual business plan and revenue targets for each month and figure out, can we cut costs in places? Can we actually get this place to make some money? So if we're gonna sell 1.5 million, can we get this 109 up to 350, 300 or 350 next year?
See,
Right? So there's a couple things going on at the same time.
Mike French was correct in his 30%.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, nationwide liquor stores, if they're not making 20%, they close the doors. Their profit margin is 20 to 30%. But this is a good start going there. I don't,
Well, the question is not, do we remodel or do we build a new building? The question is, what can we do to actually improve the health of the business?
yes.
Remove the building out of it. We gotta look at the health of the business. When Jesse and I were on a couple years ago, I mean, there had been no increase in 2 to 3 years with that business over the highest period of inflation in the nation's history. And we hadn't raised our prices. Just
Prices,
doing,
prices were being matched to a place down the road.
and so back to Mike's thing, it has not, and everyone that's been in the liquor committee, and this is definitely no knock on the management, but a manager is not an owner. There has not been an owner that has been directing ownership decisions within that business. And that's where us as a council need to step in that ownership role, and either we can put together a guideline and criteria for future council members to carry that on, or we close it down. And it's not an emotional decision. I mean, it's a business decision. Sure, the pickle's been around for everyone. Everyone has the sweatshirts, you know, whatever. There'll be tears shed over that. But this is a dollar and cents thing. We gotta make the business healthy. And then we talk about remodel, building or whatever. But right now, we gotta focus on the business, not the building.
Right, and I say, I would like, first step, business plan, yes. I'd like to see how it goes for 2025. I don't want to step on anybody's toes or committees are there, but is that something the council wants to look at? Is just, you know, we'll start the business practices with you and Councilman Zahn and just see how that goes. But I mean, we know it's going to be pricey no matter what we do. It's a staple to Nisswa. It's something we, in my opinion, we need to keep, but it has to do better. It is doing better than it was from when I came on, from when Jesse came on, from Joe came on. But
It's our job to make it do better too. It's not, you know, Terry or
Correct.
whoever. It's up
Correct.
to these 5 people right
Right.
here to make these decisions and tough decisions to improve the health of it. Then let's talk about all the construction later.
I'm all for expectations and accountability. If somebody tells me a target or Mayor Carnahan a target, hit 20 to 30% net, we're gonna get with Terry and we're gonna come up with an idea to go hit 20 to 30% net. 3 years ago, I'm talking 1.5 net was where it was at.
now, isn't it?
And it's starting to trend in a better direction.
Go up. Yeah, but
Right.
there's a lot of room to go.
Absolutely.
I-
Additionally, though, I don't know, Jenny, has the PFM financial results been relayed to the rest of the council?
They're in the packet.
Of course they are.
And it's very detailed. I'm happy to sit down with anyone because I mean, it's a lot to.
It
work
is.
through,
I went
so.
through it. I was,
There is one line in there in particular in regards to the situation that the city would be due to a pickle renovation either, or even new building, a dollar for dollar line of the ratio for the bond that would put long-term, how it would go backwards. And the data is pretty straightforward.
Yep.
It's pretty straightforward. So if you're looking for a reason as to why we got to this point, scale back the idea, just like what we just did with the Downtown Master Plan Committee. We know that there's some immediate things that we have to do. Can't stay continually stagnant because it has been one of those things where it is a dollar decision, but there's a lot of individuals in this room and outside of this room that view that place maybe differently than us sitting up here do. They go there for their happy hour. They go there for watching their Price is Right. It's just a part of, I go there, I'll be there tomorrow night after hockey with the Pickle Pond Hockey League. It's one of those things. And we want to be diligent with it because it's kind of that pop culture icon of city of Nisswa. What else do we got? I mean, no offense to anything else, but we got a lot of things,
Lot in Nisswa.
but I'm talking actual center hub that's been there that the city owns, the city of Nisswa owns. And honestly, if it can crank out 20-30% net and we got the management and the personnel to be able to help drive that,
Right.
I'm all for being behind that momentum, but even at a break even to 5, even 7.5, 10%, that's still money going back to the tax base. That's going against what it's contributing to the levy on an annual basis.
Yeah, and I think we can fix it, and I think there's a lot of areas to improvement, and I think, I would say, let's focus the next year on that, and the numbers will be different.
Yeah, let's do this. Like I said, I have a meeting anyway on the books with Terry tomorrow to kick off
Okay.
the process for building the plan, the sales plan for 2025. So if it's okay, I'll initiate that process with him. We'll come back to the liquor committee, and then again, maybe at our February retreat, we can
Right.
have a first draft of that plan
Cool.
for the council, for everyone to review, give input, and see if we can't get these numbers to be much better than they currently are.
I think we can. And then we'd be in a better situation.
And then we can just halt on this motion for tonight and revisit this, or revisit the forward state of the pickle at a later date.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Good. All right, next on the agenda is the recommendation to authorize bids for the Gull Lake Trail 4B project. Amber?
Yes, good evening. Thank you. You have some information in your packet. It's not the full plan set. I did bring a copy here. It's weighing down a chair. So in your packet, you have the advertisement to authorize the bidding as well as the engineer's opinion of cost. That does come in under what we have for grant funding. So that's a good first sign. Also in your packet, it outlines some of the grant information. We were awarded $855,000 with a matching of $80,000, and has to be completed by June 30th, 2026. So between Bill and myself, we'd be happy to answer questions.
Any questions?
And just for council clarity, so once bids are opened, then it's presented back to the council, the results before you then would accept any bids. So this is just to initiate that process.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize bids for Gull Lake Trail 4B project as presented.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is planning and zoning. Chapter 20 ordinance amendment draft.
Good evening. Thank you. So this month here in January, we had presented a draft amendment to chapter 20. The city has been engaged with Christopher Pence to come up with some renditions to the ordinance. We're lifting the conditional approval that we have from the DNR. Some of the elements are to adopt FEMA floodplain regulations and to define and clarify the planned development district. So we added a bunch of uses and standards to the tables in chapter 20 related to the PDD and also some FEMA floodplain regulations to become compliant with the DNR in the state. We also had some general housekeeping clarifications that were in there, conflicting language adjustments that we struck or clarified. Happy to answer any questions as it relates to the highlighted additions.
I don't have any.
Any questions, Bruce? Nothing. Jesse?
So the action then would be to set the public hearing for February 4th if.
We don't need to have that action, so
No.
just as long as we just described the process, so when the public hearing will take place.
Okay.
Which would be at the planning commission.
At the
right?
planning commission, yeah.
And then final,
And then
Ordinance will be
final
brought-
ordinance adoption in March.
February, right, for this one?
Oh, yeah, February. At the
February,
city
yes.
council, sorry.
Yep. So just an FYI for the council tonight. Planning, public hearing will happen at planning commission with final presentation to the council in February. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just comment, as we move forward, a lot of changes will be coming, I think.
Okay.
Just let the council know.
On
Sounds good.
ordinances or?
On ordinances, yeah, just trying to clean it up, just continue what Bethany started, but you're gonna see this monthly,
Some don't jive. I mean, you can,
A
you
lot.
can't. Yeah.
so. Just FYI.
Very good. Next is the request from the Spirits of Nisswa for a step advancement for Kelly Walker. I know Brian is not here tonight, so is there any?
He's not, this is a standard request when there's a new key holder request that he has, that person be given a new step and then
Mayor Carnahan, I'll make a motion to approve the request from Spirits in Nisswa regarding step advancement for employee Kelly Walker.
I'll second.
Very good. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Bruce is always so fast on his like.
Speedy Gonzalez.
Okay, next is
Nope,
approve
aye.
the 2025 budget transfers.
these are standard
Okay.
transfers incorporated into our 25 budget.
Mayor Carnahan, I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 budget transfer that's presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And then number 11 is approve the 2025 audit engagement letter.
I had a question on that, if I may.
Yeah.
There's a 12.3% increase on the year-over-year cost. Did they give any explanation when the fee schedule was presented?
They did not. What I can tell you is that it is extremely difficult to find an auditor to do financial statement for governments these days. They are in short supply. So our auditor has, for the last 3 or 4 years, done an annual renewal. Typically, we've had a 2 or 3 year renewal, but that's reflective of just the market right now. So they don't have as many people doing the work, so it is challenging. We are stuck a bit with the numbers as they are, but I don't believe a lot of audit firms are taking new government clients right now. And so, while it's not ideal, I don't know that we have a lot of
My employees from
options.
Texas call that hogtied. Or hogtied.
Yeah.
There's really no other option?
Mm-mm. They're,
Well, I would say not for this year's audit,
Of course.
right, but I mean, certainly you could entertain an RFP and see what you get for response. That's certainly an option if the council would like to do that in the spring or the summer.
I would be in favor of that due to this double-digit increase.
Sure.
Any client
Mhm.
of mine would be alarmed by a double-digit increase year over year, so.
If the council was inclined to accept this for 2024 and then authorize, I could bring an RFP back sometime, maybe May, for review, and then we can initiate that process.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Do we need a motion though, still on this?
Yes, so I would say just what I stated, if
Yep.
someone wants to make a motion for those 2 items.
I'll make a motion to accept the 2024 audit engagement letter as presented and to initiate a 2025 RFP for said engagement.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next, number 12 is the memo regarding the 2026 budget scenarios. So in this one, we were talking about, like, as we look at the budget for 2026, having the departments approach the council with 3 different scenarios, a 10% decrease, a flat to cost of living increase only, or, kind of the grandmaster wish list, so that it would give the council a chance to view the budget opportunities in their entirety for next year. So we perhaps don't get into a situation where it comes out published, this double-digit increase that is much higher than our surrounding communities, and then it causes a lot of consternation and angst. So if we do the work up front, so that's essentially what this memo is.
Well, I will say most of the departments are running on a they're pretty slim. Can we say up to 10%?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
I think it's a great initiative to try.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Why not?
So one just brief comment I did receive was for the council to also think about, let's just say, even if a budget reduction is presented as an example, does that meet the goal of the council? So what are the council's overall goals would help the staff also with then aligning our budgets to meet that. So just some feedback, but otherwise, yes, we can certainly work on this.
Good. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the 2026 budget scenarios as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion?
I think back to Jenny's point about overall council target. Do you have one in mind? I know
Just-
you do.
just a reduction.
5%, 7.5%, 10%?
It'd be nice to have a reduction.
Absolutely.
Just a
But
reduction,
but
I
to
mean,
give some clarity to the city staff, if we all have something in mind of a
Yeah,
5,
maybe we
7.5,
can too at the retreat,
10, like
have
that.
a deeper discussion about it, because then it gives a little more time to be thoughtful about looking through past budgets and whatnot.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, item 13, approve the Minnesota PEA clerical contract for January 1st through December 31st, 2025. Is there any? input
Also
on that,
move.
Jenny? Oh, all right.
And I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And lastly, under new business, approve the RFP for labor and employment legal services.
So this draft RFP is the city attorney prepared the draft, and I helped him with some of the details, ensuring some of the specifics for what the labor and employment requirements would be needed from an attorney. And so pretty standard RFP. We would recommend that we would put an advertisement in the paper for that and seek interest from qualified firms, and then present that at a future meeting. I believe there's a timeline, certainly can be adjusted, but just a proposed sequence of steps to work through the process, to review the proposals, and then conduct interviews as necessary, and then present a contract to the council.
That was my only question that I had actually was on the interviews. Who would be conducting the interviews for this? Would it be the personnel committee?
I believe that is what is included in here. Let me see. I think I provided for initial review would occur with the city attorney and myself, but then the personnel committee would conduct the interviews and present a recommendation to the council.
Any additional discussion? Do we have a motion?
Also move.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Old business. First item is approve the letter of support for the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. So the RAISE grant application for MnDOT and the Crow and Crow Wing County for the 371 corridor. And Jenny, I'll let you give some additional commentary.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Carnahan. So as the council might remember, this topic came before you at the December council meeting, that there was a grant application that was being worked on to be submitted by the end of this month here in January. At the time, we didn't have a lot of detail as far as specific intersections within Nisswa and things like that to kind of accompany the request for support. So The council tabled that item to bring back tonight. We do have representatives here from MnDOT and Bolton and Mank that could certainly answer specific questions. But I did also provide an email to the council. The county board did meet on this twice, once at the end of December and once in early January. And the presentation from Tim Bray, the county engineer, was really well done and provided a lot of the overview. So if you didn't have a chance to look at or listen to that meeting, some of the high points, really that it speaks to the Crow Wing County Comprehensive Plan, that the transportation section identifies a lot of sustained occurrences of fatal and serious crashes on the state highway system within Crow Wing County. And this raised grant application is focusing on those safety improvement needs that need to be sort of kind of one level improved and not creating a lot of new intersections or adjustments at that point. It's trying to address crash rates and things like that. Nisswa has a handful of intersections that certainly are of concern and have been monitored for the last couple of years, as the council knows. We have been working with MnDOT over the last 18 months on the corridor study that complements this raised grant application. As I noted, the near-term improvements will focus on safety priorities. That could potentially also incorporate some new message boards, specifically in that Gull Lake area, to warn motorists when there's inclement weather and things like that that they need to be aware of, like that blowing snow accident that we had a couple of years ago. The grant application is based on concepts at this time. So there's some dialed in concepts, but the application will include multiple concepts for some of the intersections. And so nothing is final approved. If the funding is awarded, then there is an extensive process that will take place with MnDOT to engage our local communities, to engage the city council about furthering those concepts and refining them. The application deadline, as I mentioned, is the end of this month. Notice of award would occur around the June-July timeframe, with construction likely to occur in that 2028-29 timeframe. Those are kind of estimates at this point, but that gives you a rough idea. The grant application will be submitted to cover 100% of that project cost, which is $25 million. There will be a request for that full amount because there is an area of
Poverty.
persistent poverty, got it right, within this corridor study, which then allows this application to be submitted without a local match. So that's a good reason to, to use that. We will, I'm able to have that opportunity. Sometimes grants have that 80-20 or 90-10 match requirement. This is, again, conceptual, provided some of the intersection detail in your packet. We have representatives from MnDOT if you have specific questions, but really it's just a letter of support to say we'd like to apply and see what happens, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to apply and see what happens. Will this also address some of the backage roads then too, as part of this concept? Or as part of?
It
No.
will not, no.
No.
So the city can then start to, let's say funding is awarded, then that would be for us to start to say, okay, how do we align those projects and which ones are priorities to connect some of these improvements with our own local goals and needs for that.
Yeah, because some of the intersections can't be shut off without going hand in hand with the backage road. So also too, yeah, we just want to calculate what that expense would be, because I would think the backage roads would actually surpass the expense of just cutting off these accesses on 371, where the cost would potentially be greater to the city if these funds can't be used for that. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
It makes sense. I mean, it's, I guess it's the delineation between where the cutoff is from the highway access to then the backage or county roads. I mean, it's a continuous piece of pavement. Where that cutoff would be, I think would give a little bit better clarity, and then we can, I mean, if this project's not going till 28, 29 construction window, you got some road bonds that'll be in that same window too. We can match to see where those specific roads would be in comparison to this infrastructure project. And maybe we adjust to be able to make it a continuous construction process, so there's not one intersection or one area that's being worked on, two different projects on a back-to-back construction cycle.
Mhm.
So just, it's a broader discussion.
Well, yeah, now also too, I mean, I don't know what our current negotiation is with them, but years past, 4 or 5 years ago when this was talked about, it was talked about, okay, we'll give you this, but you give us that, kind of a compromise. We'll shut this intersection off, but you're gonna help fund the backage roads. And I won't want to take our negotiation also away with MinDOT on doing that because we got a grant to shut these off and they're like, okay, I don't want this, I think we should still apply for it, but also I don't want it to shoot ourselves in the foot by not improving on what we need to have done in these areas. Just from the meetings I've sat in here with MinDOT and stuff on over the years.
And the question I asked today, because we met with MinDOT, was what happens if we don't get the grant,
Right.
right? And I'm not gonna articulate it correctly what you guys said, but that there were 3 different tiers, like tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 with along the corridor of how they would be prioritized. Not everything necessarily needs to be done at once, and that there are some potential state dollars in different buckets as well. So, because I wanted an understanding of that, because I feel like with the change in administration, right? You never know how politics can come into play with how grants might go out around the country, so.
Yeah, I think give it a shot though, and see what happens and find out more information.
So do we have a motion?
I so move.
Second,
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, the last under old business is the recommendation from the planning commission. So for the 2025 meeting date, Stephen?
Hello again, thank you. So following the meeting last month in regards to the planning commission calendar pertinent to public hearings, I did some research, comparative analysis into neighboring municipalities and their timelines for their deadlines to submit an application. Sample average that I found was 29.5 days prior to the public hearing date. The Nisswa 2025 proposal was 32 days prior, which is 5 Fridays before the Tuesday hearing. That average is slightly higher, but we're talking a matter of weeks. I've had conversation with Councilmember Hall regarding, an alternative, maybe being 4 Fridays prior. I brought it before my commission again, just as a notification that the motion did get tabled from city council last month. Provided this information to them and asked if they would seek to change their recommendation. They affirmed that they wanted to see it stay at 5 Fridays before, and just kind of looking for a motion to set the deadline, I guess. See if there's council input on such a topic, so.
I recommend 4, just move it up. Like, Steve and I had even talked earlier today, he'll work with whatever we set, but, in the summertime, it's shortened window, period of time.
So the
Yeah.
notion of 5 Fridays before really leads 12 days of lead time. That's calendar days before the application deadline for me to work with the applicant. Say there's an element missing, like a certificate of survey or information on the survey that it makes that survey incomplete. That allows me some lead time then to work with either the surveyor, the applicant, whoever the authorized agent is on the public hearing, to shore up on those elements prior to putting notice out in the paper. If there's anything unforeseen, then it's a matter of, mitigating risk on, say I put a notice out in the paper that didn't contain all of the complete ask that was going to be reviewed at the public hearing. And then we missed that publication deadline for that public hearing. Now we've tabled effectively prevented that application from being heard at public hearing. So more lead time is beneficial, but if it's the goal of the community to make the process more expeditious, happy to entertain that. So
Also, one of the things I had expressed too, when somebody comes and turns in an application and Stephen goes through it, and let's say that there's a certain format between a surveyor and a house plan or something that needs put on one document and stuff, that is not a condition to hold up the process from moving forward. Yes, you know, most of the time you're working with professional architects, engineers, surveyors to get this stuff done, and that the application come in, you know, and to kind of say, okay, you know, bring this back to me by next week and put these pieces of paper together on one, that I want to, that is the way that it has been done by past employees in this position in the city, and seems to work well, be responsive by professionals in the industry getting these permits. And I don't want that to be a holdup now going ahead to, like I say, keep that ball rolling. If that makes sense, what I'm saying in the permit process.
some of that topic may be pertinent to chapter 20's ordinance phrasings for minimum submission requirements. So that would be maybe taking a look at the language there to make sure that it's on par with the expectation. I guess at this point, we're just talking dates for the current ordinance, and then we can talk about, you know, ordinance revisions as it pertains to those submission requirements and what those required elements are. So right now, it's kind of employing some best professional judgment on, does it make sense to capture this a little bit after the fact? And that's happy to accommodate, but want to keep process at the forefront as well. Keep everyone above board.
I'm in favor of 4. That's what it had been in the past.
It was between 4 and 5. I think we were setting it to the first Friday. So some months it was 4 Fridays, some months it was 5 Fridays. The ones that it was 4 may have felt a little bit more rushed by the planner at the time. I guess I only have a short window looking back, so.
You have a motion then, Joe, or?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we do it for 4 Fridays.
I'll second that.
Do we have questions, discussion from other council members? Comments? No? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
You got this.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Stephen.
Thank you.
Okay, council reports. I just have a quick one. I want to thank everyone on staff, fellow council members on the residents for your support as I've onboarded into this new role. It's only been a couple weeks, but everybody's help has been tremendously appreciated. And as I reflect on the first few weeks and kind of the short-term goals that I have for myself new in this role, I just wanted to share kind of 4 key things. So one, improving communication and transparency. So partnering with city staff to create a detailed plan for enhancing how we communicate to residents, including potentially launching a city newsletter, expanding social media outreach, and doing things for real-time updates, which would come before the council at a later date for consideration. Increasing community engagement. We already did this within our organizational meeting of adding 2 town halls and being more collaborative together with our 2 council retreats. And then additionally, I'm seeking to work out of the city a couple half days a week here and there to do open hours for anybody that wants to come in and talk about anything, educate me as well. And then just learning in collaboration. I'm really trying to make a concentrated effort to build relationships with staff within the community, with other municipal leaders and network, and attend as many trainings as possible so that I'm educated and get up to speed on the best practices, following all of the regulations and having effective governance, and then just planning for the future. So laying groundwork for long-term goals, including responsible growth and ensuring fiscal sustainability as we look to 2026 and beyond. So thank you all. I do appreciate it. And that's all I have for my report. And I'll go to the rest of the council for any reports or updates. And I'll start with you, Councilmember Frey.
on any updates or anything. I just want to say one thing. If I send an email to staff, that email is between that staff member and myself, and I get a little torqued when that staff member lets the rest of the staff know what that private email was about. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you. Councilmember London, do you have
Nothing
any?
at this time.
Okay, Councilmember Zahn.
I have nothing at this time.
All right, Councilmember Hall.
Yeah, I guess, maybe one thing I have, for the personnel committee is I would like to look at the role of city administrator, within the city council, and then also to the role of, a clerk position like the city had prior to the city administrator position. I'd like the, personnel committee to take a look at that and then kind of report back to the council, just looking for any efficiencies, updates, cost savings, anything with that area, and then be discussed as a group probably in February at our town hall meeting. But first start there and just get some conversations going with the personnel committee, I guess is what I'd like to look at doing.
So you're saying you want to eliminate the city administrator position?
No, I'm just saying, look at what that all entails, how that's set up, and just do a deep dive into that. Also to look at how that was set up versus the clerk position before the city was here and do a deep dive. I'm not saying eliminate either one, but as a group and a whole, since I've been on, it's been done one way, and I want to learn about the different ways to do it, to run a city, look for cost savings, if there would be any, and then also efficiency. Just,
Well, I will tell you
areas
one thing
of
right
the-
now is, with what the city of Nisswa goes through, what we're looking at, the complexities of it. That's why municipalities get a city administrator to do that. Unless you're thinking that they need help in the clerk and the administration side.
I'm just looking at it as a whole and how it's set up. I'm just looking to learn more. I'm not saying that this is any sort of decision-making thing, more of an information gathering, for myself and other council members to be brought up to speed on. One of the things in the personnel committee, just looking at it, let's take the fire chief position, tonight, looking at it, same way, okay, the emergency management stuff was done here. Should it be done over here by the fire chief? Looking at it all the way across the board and having a better understanding of what all the roles and complexities are in this area. So for each area and department, just kind of doing a deep dive into it. And like I say, coming back to the council and saying, this is what I found out, this is what I know. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not saying one way or the other, but I think,
So if you just, so are you recommending that we do that with all the departments?
yeah,
Like you
just
said,
looking, one of the goals that I have, and I've spoke with, Mayor, about this is one of our things is to meet with every staff, every department head and kind of do a deep dive into how it looks, what we can do better and
Streamline.
yeah, and streamline stuff. And one of the things, for the council to talk about is, is the role with city administrator and, how that's currently working, how it's worked in the past, are there any streamlined stuff, as we continue to progress with different stuff, get into the grants, more funding, what are the other roles, needs, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road, and just kind of starting that process of looking into it as we are, that's same thing, that's what we meant about with the police chief today, how's that gonna work? How did it work in the past? What are we gonna do different? You know, same thing with Public Works. That'll be, you know, another one to come up, you know. Currently, we have Public Works Committee. You know, my personal opinion on that is that would go away and we'd go back to, you know, having a couple liaisons there. But we want to take and do a deep dive into each one. And I'd just like to start at the top and then go down through. And like I say, as the being on the personnel committee, then we'd come back to the council and share. This is what we found. Here's maybe areas of improvement that we can do and go from there. So just, you know, letting everybody know, you know, that would be one of the things. Any feedback, but that'd be one of the things for the personnel committee that I'd like to look at doing.
I think that's a good idea, you know, time management, accountability, and just to have a better understanding of what's going on.
Do we need a motion?
I don't know. I'm just saying, Tom's shaking his head no. But I'm
You
just,
wouldn't need a motion to do a
Yeah.
deep dive into that.
no.
Okay.
It's just
I'm
something you look into and then you come back and say, okay, this is this is how we can do this and that. You wouldn't need a motion.
It's just more transparent on personnel committee. That's one of my goals, starting a new year out, that I'd like to do and start going through everyone. I mean, we can sit here and talk about every area of department, you know, that we want to go through, but I just want to start from the top and go down through and look at it and report back to everybody. So I guess that's what I have for tonight.
Okay, anything else from anyone? All right, then last on here is announcements and upcoming meeting dates, which are listed. And then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I so move.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the meeting is adjourned.